Hello and welcome to Strategic News International. I'm Surya Gangadharan. Imran Khan is wrapping up his visit to the US and apparently on a triumphal note. I have with me Mr. Arun K Singh. He was India's ambassador to the US. And let's go to him and figure out exactly what Imran Khan has to be triumphant about. Ambassador Singh, what do you make of the Imran Khan visit to the White House, the talks with Trump?
I think from Imran Khan's point of view and from Pakistan's point of view, the visit clearly has gone off well. First, they got a meeting with President Trump. This is the first time he has met Imran Khan or a Pakistani leader since he became president. Invited him to the White House. And it has been done clearly because the US wants Pakistan's cooperation in the context of what US is trying to do in Afghanistan. Get some kind of a process going between the Taliban and the Afghan government so that it provides a framework to enable the US to pull out of Afghanistan. And that is what Trump has been trying. And they feel that for that, they need Pakistan's cooperation. So it is entirely in that framework that Imran Khan was invited to visit the White House. Now, beyond the visit itself, I think, again, from Imran Khan's point of view, President Trump's sort of comment suggesting that he's ready to do mediation on Kashmir, which is not likely to go very far because India will completely reject it. But that having been said, from Pakistan's point of view, he's saying that Imran Khan will declare it as a political victory for himself, that he got the US president to talk about that. And then if you look at the statement that the White House put out on the discussions, I think there are 3 or 4 elements there that we need to look at. First, the US president is acknowledging that Pakistan has given them some cooperation in the context of Afghanistan. Second, US president acknowledging that Pakistan has taken some steps against terrorism. Although other US comments have suggested that these steps are not credible, they are not irreversible, but still some steps they have taken. And then the statement goes on to suggest that should Pakistan continue to provide cooperation to the United States, the US will resume economic assistance and also military cooperation with Pakistan. So from Pakistan's point of view, all these are clearly positives that they would look at it. Of course, US has left this that they would do all that subject to cooperation with Pakistan. So we have to see who plays this game better, who is able to extract more from this process. And of course, from India's point of view, the unnecessary irritant that has been introduced is Trump's comment that he's ready to mediate on Kashmir. But as I said, the surprising thing, at one level, I'm not surprised that Trump said something like this because he likes to project that he's different from any other US president. He can do things differently. He can do things that people have not done before. But the surprising thing was that in a public comment, he suggested that the Indian Prime Minister had asked him to mediate also,
Yeah.
which cannot be true.
Yeah.
No Indian Prime Minister can do that because for 50 years, India's consistent position has been that there is no scope for any third party mediation on Kashmir. It's a bilateral issue. And therefore, that statement is clearly based on a falsehood. And therefore, it detracts from the credibility of the office of the US president and whatever President Trump otherwise may be saying or trying to do. And there have been other contexts also where his statements have been found to be not true. So it's a complicated situation. Clearly, his approach is based not on facts, but at the same time, he has said something, and now we have to see how he tries to follow up on that in any way, because India will have no option but to completely reject that.
Mhm. Do you think he was just being Trump when he said it? You know, he is prone to saying a lot of things which he doesn't mean, and ranging from outright lies to completely factual mistakes. Is this one of
So,
those?
well, he's clearly being Trump because I'm sure the briefing to him and the advice to him would have been to stay away from this. Because
Yeah.
US officials know clearly India's position and know that there is no pathway forward on this kind of approach. It's a very firm line that India takes. That would have been briefing to him. But he has not followed briefs that he has received in the recent, after he became president. He tries to lay down his own path. So, and at the same time, very often when he said controversial things, when he has said things going beyond what the brief to him has been, he has often doubled down on that. and then taken further steps down that path. So yes, he has said something which is not acceptable to India. He has said something based on a falsehood. He has said something clearly which would not be in the brief to him. But having said it, now the question is, will he double down on it, try and follow up, or will he just let it pass? And if he tries to follow up on that, then clearly he will introduce complications in the US-India relationships. And there'll be more challenges in the US-India relationship because India will have no option but to firmly push back whatever may be, the equities in the US-India relationship.
Do you believe the US establishment, I'm referring to the State Department, the Pentagon, are they now willing to return to that kind of a relationship they had with Pakistan not so many years ago?
Look, they will do it based on what they get out of Pakistan. So, I mean, for decades, the whole approach to Pakistan has been, okay, we are willing to give you some cooperation, some support, what we get out from you. So for a long time, Pakistan marketed itself as a frontline state against the Soviet Union and got
Yeah.
military support. After the Soviet Union moved into Afghanistan in 1979, again it marketed itself as a frontline state in the context of Afghanistan, pushed the Soviet Union out of Afghanistan. And again it got economic assistance, military supplies. After 9/11, it marketed itself as a necessary country with which US must cooperate because the transit into Afghanistan for US supplies, US troops had to be through Pakistan because they didn't have an option through Iran. The route through Russia and Central Asia was very long and costly. And now their relationship with Russia has also been complicated. So Pakistan has always marketed its relevance in the context of what US is trying to do and then extract economic and military supplies from the US. Now, again, they're seen as relevant because US wants to get out of Afghanistan and US believes that the only country that has some influence on the Taliban is Pakistan. So they will play that game and they will, as you would have seen that Imran Khan commented in front of the US president that they will now try and encourage the Taliban and persuade the Taliban to talk directly to the Afghan government. Clearly, he said that to please the US president.
Yeah,
That, okay,
yeah.
I'm going to do this. Now, what can you do for us? And so the US will say, all right, we'll watch. And if you are able to do that successfully, if the Taliban Afghan government process proceeds, if the Afghan peace process proceeds, we'll give you economic assistance. We'll look at strengthening military cooperation. So US will certainly do that depending on what they get out of Pakistan. The challenge there would be that if they cross certain lines, especially in terms of military supplies, which Pakistan, whatever be the reason they may be getting it, only uses against India, then it
Yeah.
will complicate the relationship with India. It will complicate defense cooperation with India. So there will be an impact. So we have to see how far down the path they go because they also have to factor in the US-India relationship. Because whatever may be the relevance to them of the US-Pakistan relationship, the US-India relationship is also important. If you look at the economic content of the relationship and the strategic dimension of the relationship in the context of the Indo-Pacific, where US has declared India as an important partner and has also declared India as a major defense partner. So US will need to do its own balancing on this.
How do you think the establishment in the US is looking at this? We've had some comments from the US, people saying Trump's comments are embarrassing,
Mhm.
and this is not the way the India relationship should be handled. But how do you believe the, people like Pompeo and others, how do you believe they would react to this?
So we'll have to see because those who are clearly opposed to President Trump and those who value the US-India relationship will come out in opposition to President Trump. I think complication for those in the administration would be that they understand the potential damage this can do to the US-India relationship, but they cannot come out directly in opposition to the
Yeah,
president. So
true.
either they will try to walk back from it later, or make statements that are convoluted and can mean different things to different people. Because I was looking, for example, at the tweet put out by the acting U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Alice Wells, and from their point of view, it was carefully drafted because everybody could take away from it what they wanted. Because the statement says, while the issue of Kashmir is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan. So to that point of view, it has appeased India by saying it's a bilateral issue. But
Yeah.
at the beginning, while it is a bilateral issue, US would welcome India and Pakistan engaging on it and is ready to provide assistance. So, so Pakistan will take away, yes, they're ready to provide assistance. President Trump's comments, in a sense,
Yeah.
protected because it says US is ready to provide assistance. So it's a very carefully crafted statement. I think they're stuck in a bit of a bind, the others in the administration, because they know the kind of reaction this will get in India, but they cannot come out completely in opposition to President Trump. And also, they will play the game to see how much they can extract from Pakistan with whatever little they give.
In that sense, our continuing to keep up the relationship with Russia while not alienating China is a good sense, good common sense.
Look, we have always said that we believe in multipolarity in international relations, and we would like multi-alignment. Have different partnerships with each of the countries, and so certainly, I mean, we should strengthen with all countries. Strengthen with countries in Europe, with Japan, so that we widen our options. But at the same time, the fact remains that our largest trading partner is the United States.
Is
The
the
biggest
US,
source
yeah.
of investment is the United States. The largest single country presence of Indian origin diaspora is the United States. Largest technology partnership is with the United States. And it is the United States that has the largest number of countries as part of its global alliance system. And if you have better relations with the US, it enables you to have good relations with large number of other countries in the world. So these are the dimensions we have to keep in mind while clearly drawing red lines where our vital interests are concerned and signaling clearly that on our vital interests we cannot do any compromise. For example, when we did the nuclear test in 1998, the whole world came out against India,
Yeah.
except really just a few of the major countries. And we stood firm. And the US was
Yeah.
totally opposed to what India had done. China was opposed. Russia had opposed sanctions against India but had criticized India for what it did. France had not criticized India and opposed sanctions against India. So we took stock of where the situation was and we stayed firm on our position and eventually people reconciled. So if a country is firm and strong on its position, people have to accept that. And so that's why I feel, I mean, it's an irritation, but one shouldn't worry too much about it. We will be able to, I think, deal with it.
Now, some of the reports we read suggest that the US is looking at an exit from Afghanistan around September or October this year. Is that feasible?
I don't know whether that is feasible. That's too early, but clearly they're looking at an exit. And they would like, from the reports that come, that the process between the Taliban and the Afghan government advances. If somehow they can agree for everyone participating in the forthcoming presidential elections, that's something that the Americans would welcome most of all.
Yes.
But if that doesn't happen, we have to see how Americans look at the present political process in Afghanistan evolving, because presidential elections are scheduled to be held within the next couple of months.
Mhm.
So, but
Just
I think total agreement, US pull out in just about 2 months from now doesn't look very likely at this stage.
mhm. Looking ahead, since the US is committed to pulling out of Afghanistan, where does that leave us? We are, in a sense, between a rock and a hard place.
Each country takes decision in its own interest. And the US will clearly decide whether to stay in Afghanistan or leave Afghanistan based on its own political compulsions and perceptions of its own interests. And we had used the US presence in Afghanistan since 2001 and the
Yeah, yeah.
security framework that provided to really provide a lot of economic assistance in Afghanistan. And that earned India a lot of goodwill. According to most public opinion polls, India is the favorite country in Afghanistan, the most popular country in Afghanistan. So once US pulls out, as and when they do, we'll have to look at the situation there and then work on our strengths. Because clearly Pakistan, Iran, the Central Asian countries have some advantage in terms of being immediate neighbors.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Afghans would not like to be dependent only on Pakistan or Iran, and they would like other options. So there will be possibilities for India to keep its position sufficiently protected within Afghanistan.
And I would assume even the Taliban would like to have an equation with us.
I'm sure, but of course they'll be looking at how their mentor Pakistan
Yeah,
are
yeah.
buying some of that, at least in the initial stage. But if Taliban gradually accept the present constitution of Afghanistan, accept human rights, women's rights, children's, girls' education, accept an inclusive political process and gain international acceptance, I'm sure in that framework they would also very much welcome economic and other kinds of relationship with India.
On that note, Ambassador Singh, thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.